Marge counters with a fabricated accusation, escalating the conflict into a legal and moral battle. The sun hadn't yet breached the horizon when Liana Torres slipped out of her cramped apartment, her breath fogging in the pre-dawn chill of San Verde. The coastal town hummed with the quiet promise of morning, waves crashing in the distance, seagulls stirring, but for Liana, it was just another day of survival. Her sneakers, worn thin at the soles, slapped against the pavement as she hurried toward the Golden Spoon Café, a glossy upscale diner perched on the cliffs overlooking the Pacific. It was the kind of place where tourists dropped $100 bills on avocado toast and locals like Liana could only dream of affording a cup of coffee. She adjusted the faded denim jacket draped over her uniform, a crisp white blouse and black skirt that never quite fit right, and checked her watch, 5:45 a.m. 15 minutes until her shift. Her boss, Marge Wentworth, demanded punctuality with the ferocity of a drill sergeant. Marge, a woman whose wealth came from a string of inherited properties and a knack for squeezing every penny from her employees, ruled the Golden Spoon like a fiefdom. Liana couldn't afford to test her patience, not with rent due and her daughter, Sophia, counting on her. The café's glass doors gleamed under the sodium lights as Liana slipped inside, the scent of roasted coffee beans and sizzling bacon hitting her like a warm wave. The place was a paradox, polished marble counters and velvet booths for the elite, yet a grimy underbelly of overworked staff and unspoken rules. Liana tied her apron and clocked in, her hands trembling slightly from the cold, or maybe from the gnawing anxiety that never left her. Torres. Marge's voice cut through the quiet like a knife. She emerged from the back office, her platinum blonde hair pulled into a severe bun, her designer blazer tailored to perfection. At 52, Marge carried herself with the arrogance of someone who'd never known a day of hunger. "You're cutting it close again. I don't pay you to stroll in like you own the place." Liana forced a smile, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. "Good morning, Ms. Wentworth. I'm here on time, 5:47. Marge's eyes narrowed, scanning Liana as if searching for a flaw to exploit. "Barely. Get the tables prepped. The breakfast rush starts at 6, and I won't have you dragging us down." She turned on her heel, her heels clicking against the tile, leaving Liana to exhale a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. The morning unfolded in a blur of clattering dishes and forced smiles. Liana darted between tables, balancing trays of eggs Benedict and lattes adorned with foam hearts. The customers, wealthy retirees, tech entrepreneurs, and the occasional celebrity, tipped generously, their casual wealth a stark contrast to Liana's reality. She'd been at the Golden Spoon for 6 months, a single mom clawing her way out of debt after her ex-husband vanished with their savings. Every dollar mattered, especially now, with Sophia's 8th birthday looming. The girl had her heart set on a telescope, a real one, not a toy, to stargaze from their tiny balcony. By 10 a.m., the rush slowed, and Liana paused to wipe down a table. A crumpled 20 lay beside a half-eaten plate of pancakes, a tip from a chatty couple who'd raved about the view. She slipped it into her apron pocket, a small victory. That's when she heard the clink of coins, Marge, standing behind the counter, counting the communal tip jar. The Golden Spoon had a rule: all tips went into the jar, to be fairly distributed at the end of each week. Except Liana had noticed the jar never seemed to match the day's haul. Last week, she'd calculated at least $200 in tips from her tables alone, yet her share had been a measly $30. She'd kept quiet, too afraid of losing her job to question it. But today, something snapped. "Ms. Wentworth?" Liana approached cautiously, wiping her hands on her apron. "I was wondering about the tips. I mean, how they're split. It's just. I've been saving for something special for my daughter, Anne." Marge didn't look up from her counting. "You're on probation, Torres. Probationary staff don't get full shares until I say so. You want more? Prove you're worth it." Her tone was ice, her fingers deftly pocketing a stack of bills as she spoke. Liana's chest tightened. But I've been here 6 months. I work doubles, I never call out. And I'm supposed to care? Marge finally met her gaze, her blue eyes cold. You think your sob story entitles you to my money? This isn't a charity. Keep pushing, and you'll be out the door faster than you can say, single mom. The word stung, but Liana swallowed her retort. She nodded, retreating to the kitchen where the cooks, Raoul and Jessa, shot her sympathetic looks. She's a vulture, Raoul muttered, flipping a burger. Takes what she wants and leaves us the scraps. Jessa, a wiry woman with tattoos snaking up her arms, leaned in. I saw her stash a wad of cash in her purse last week. Tips are supposed to be ours, not hers. You should say something. I can't, Liana whispered. Not yet. She needed the job, needed the stability. But the seed of rebellion took root, watered by Marge's cruelty. The day dragged on, each interaction with Marge a fresh cut. By closing time, Liana's feet ached, and her apron held just the 20 she'd pocketed, her one act of defiance. She was wiping down the counter when Marge strode over, holding a sleek black ledger. Torres, you're staying late. Inventory. It wasn't a request. Liana glanced at the clock, 8 p.m., Sofia was with their neighbor, Mrs. Delgado, but the guilt gnawed at her. I promised my daughter I'd be home for her bedtime story, she said softly. Marge smirked. Promises don't pay bills. Finish the inventory, or don't bother coming back tomorrow. She tossed the ledger onto the counter and left, her laughter echoing as she locked the front door behind her. Alone in the dimly lit cafe, Liana opened the ledger. Rows of numbers stared back, sales, expenses, payroll. But tucked between the pages was a folded sheet, a handwritten list, tips collected, week of March 30th. The total was staggering, $1,200. Below it, a breakdown, staff share, $150. M. Wentworth, $1,050. Liana's breath caught. Marge wasn't just skimming, she was stealing, hoarding the tips for herself while the staff scraped by. Her hands shook as she snapped a photo with her phone, evidence of the truth. This wasn't just about her anymore, it was about Raoul, Jessa, and every worker Marge exploited. She tucked the sheet back into the ledger, her mind racing. Confronting Marge could cost her everything, but doing nothing meant letting Sofia down, letting herself down. As she locked up and stepped into the night, the ocean breeze carried a whisper of possibility. Liana wasn't a fighter by nature, but she'd learned to survive. And tonight, survival meant taking a stand. She clutched her phone, the photo a spark in the darkness, and vowed that Marge's reign at the Golden Spoon was about to end. The sodium glow of streetlights bathed San Verde's quiet streets as Liana Torres trudged home, the photo of Marge Wentworth's ledger burning a hole in her pocket, or rather, her phone. It was past 10 p.m., and the weight of the day pressed down on her like a damp fog rolling off the Pacific. Her sneakers scuffed against the cracked sidewalk, each step echoing the rhythm of her racing thoughts. She'd uncovered proof that Marge was stealing their tips, hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars, while she and her co-workers at the Golden Spoon Cafe barely scraped by. The question wasn't what she'd found, it was what she'd do about it. Her apartment building loomed ahead, a weathered 3-story relic with peeling paint and a flickering porch light. Liana climbed the stairs to the second floor, her key trembling in the lock. Inside, the air smelled faintly of Mrs. Delgado's arroz con pollo, a kindness from the elderly neighbor who watched Sofia on late nights like this. Liana slipped into the living room, where Sofia lay sprawled on the couch, a book about constellations splayed across her chest. Her dark curls fanned out on the cushion, her breathing soft and steady. Mrs. Delgado looked up from her knitting, her eyes crinkling with warmth. She tried to wait up for you, Mija. Said she wanted to tell you about Orion's belt. Liana's heart clenched. Thank you, Mrs. D. I'm so sorry it's late again. PSH, don't apologize. You're doing what you have to. Mrs. Delgado gathered her yarn and stood, patting Liana's shoulder. She's a good girl. Strong, like her mama. Alone now, Liana knelt beside Sophia, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face. I'm trying, baby, she whispered. I promise I'll get you that telescope. She tucked a blanket around Sophia and carried her to bed, the girl's slight weight a reminder of everything at stake. In the dim glow of a star-shaped nightlight, Liana sat on the edge of the mattress, staring at her phone. The photo glared back, $1050 to Marge, $150 to the staff. It wasn't just theft, it was betrayal. Sleep eluded her that night. By 4 a.m., she was up, brewing coffee in a chipped mug and scribbling notes on a napkin. She couldn't confront Marge alone, not without risking her job. But Raoul and Jessa, the cooks at the Golden Spoon, had seen Marge's greed firsthand. If they stood together, maybe they could force change. The idea felt fragile, like a sandcastle facing the tide, but it was something. The next morning, Liana arrived at the cafe at 5:30 a.m., her apron tied tight like armor. The breakfast rush hadn't started, giving her a narrow window to talk to the kitchen crew. She found Raoul chopping onions, his broad shoulders hunched over the cutting board, and Jessa prepping dough, her tattooed fingers deft and quick. Hey, Liana said, keeping her voice low. Can we talk? Somewhere private? Raoul raised an eyebrow, wiping his hands on a rag. What's up, Torres? You look like you saw a ghost. Worse, she replied. I saw Marge's ledger. They slipped into the walk-in freezer, the cold biting through Liana's thin blouse. She showed them the photo, her breath clouding as she explained, the tip jar totals, Marge's cut, the pitiful scraps left for them. Raoul's jaw tightened, and Jessa cursed under her breath. She's been doing this for months, Liana said. Maybe longer. We're busting our backs, and she's pocketing our money. Raoul shook his head, his voice gruff. I knew she was shady, but this? This is next level. Jessa smirked, but her eyes were hard. Explains the new designer bags every week. What's the plan, Liana? You didn't drag us in here to cry about it. I want to fight back, Liana said, surprised by the steel in her own voice. But I can't do it alone. If we confront her together, show her we know, she might back off. Or at least split the tips fair. Raoul hesitated, rubbing the back of his neck. I got a kid too, you know. If she fires me. She won't fire all of us, Jessa cut in. She'd have no one to run this place. I'm in, Torres. Let's burn her little empire down. Liana managed a shaky smile. Not burn, just rearrange. We need more proof, though. That ledger's a start, but if she denies it, we're sunk. Cameras, Raoul said suddenly. There's one by the register. If she's skimming cash there, it might have caught her. The idea sparked hope, but accessing the footage meant sneaking into Marge's office, a risk that could end them all. They agreed to watch her patterns, to wait for the right moment. As they left the freezer, the kitchen felt warmer, not just from the ovens but from the fragile alliance forming between them. The day unfolded with its usual chaos, but Liana moved with purpose. She memorized Marge's habits, the way she lingered by the tip jar after the lunch rush, her quick glances to ensure no one watched. By mid-afternoon, a new opportunity emerged. A wealthy regular, Mr. Callahan, a retired tech mogul with a penchant for over-tipping, left a $50 bill on his table, winking at Liana as he shuffled out. She pocketed it, her pulse racing, and waited. Sure enough, Marge swooped in minutes later, her manicured fingers rifling through the jar. Liana edged closer, pretending to bus a table, and saw Marge slip a wad of cash into her blazer pocket. It wasn't on camera, not yet, but it was confirmation. The woman was a thief in plain sight. At 3 p.m., during a rare lull, Liana gathered Raoul and Jessa again, this time behind the dumpster out back. The stench of grease and rotting food was a small price for privacy. "She's doing it right now," Liana said, showing them the $50 still in her apron. "Callahan tipped me, and she's acting like it's hers." Jessa grinned, a predator's gleam in her eye. "We set a trap. Plant some marked bills, catch her red-handed." Raoul nodded. "I can talk to my cousin, he's a bouncer, knows a guy who does security cams. Maybe we hack her system." The plan took shape. Liana would accidentally leave a big tip visible, Raoul would source a way to check the footage, and Jessa would rally the other waitstaff, two part-timers named Kai and Priya, who'd been grumbling about Marge for weeks. It was risky, but the fire in Liana's chest burned brighter than her fear. That night, she returned home to find Sophia awake, sketching constellations on a notepad. "Mama, did you know stars are born from dust?" Sophia asked, her brown eyes wide. "Yeah, baby," Liana said, pulling her close. "And sometimes, people rise from the dust too." The next day, the trap was set. Liana slipped a $20 bill, marked with a tiny star in the corner, onto a table, loud enough to catch Marge's ear. "Oh, look at this generous tip," she called, feigning cheer. Marge's head snapped up, her gaze predatory. By closing, the bill was gone, and Marge's purse bulged slightly as she locked up. Raoul texted later, "Cousins in. Footage tomorrow." Liana's stomach flipped. They were close, dangerously close, to exposing Marge. But as she tucked Sophia in, reading about nebulae until the girl drifted off, Liana felt a shift. This wasn't just about the telescope anymore. It was about dignity, about showing Sophia that courage could outshine greed. Tomorrow, they'd strike. Tomorrow, the Golden Spoon would tremble. The air in the Golden Spoon Cafe felt charged, like the moment before a storm breaks over San Verde's cliffs. Liana Torres stood behind the counter, polishing a glass that didn't need polishing, her eyes darting to the clock. 5:45 p.m. Closing time was near, and with it, the moment she'd been dreading, and craving, since she'd snapped that photo of Marge's ledger. Tonight, they'd confront her. Tonight, the truth would spill out, whether Marge liked it or not. Raoul leaned against the kitchen doorway, flipping a spatula with forced nonchalance, while Jessa wiped down the grill, her movements sharp and deliberate. Kai and Priya, the part-time waitstaff, lingered near the register, their nervous energy palpable. The trap had worked. The $20 bill with the tiny star, planted yesterday, had vanished into Marge's purse, and Raoul's cousin had delivered. A grainy video clip, pulled from the cafe's security feed, showed Marge pocketing cash from the tip jar, her smug smile caught in pixelated clarity. It wasn't just the marked bill, it was weeks of theft, a pattern undeniable even to the most skeptical eye. Liana's phone buzzed in her apron pocket, Raoul's text, "She's in her office. Now or never." Her stomach twisted, but she nodded to the group. They'd rehearsed this, Liana would lead, Raoul would back her with the footage, and Jessa would keep the others steady. Kai and Priya, though hesitant, had agreed to stand with them after seeing the ledger's numbers. 5 against 1. The odds felt shaky, but it was all they had. The office door loomed at the end of the hall, a polished oak slab that might as well have been a fortress gate. Liana knocked, her knuckles trembling. "A mess. Wentworth? Can we talk?" A pause, then Marge's voice, clipped and impatient. "What is it, Torres?" "I'm busy." Liana pushed the door open, the others filing in behind her. Marge sat at her desk, a stack of receipts spread before her, her designer glasses perched on her nose. She looked up, her expression shifting from annoyance to suspicion as she registered the group. "What's this? A mutiny?" "No, ma'am," Liana said, forcing her voice steady. "It's about the tips." Marge's lips thinned. I told you, probationary staff. It's not just me, Liana cut in, her heart pounding. It's all of us. We know you've been taking our tips. I found your ledger, $1050 for you, $150 for the staff, from 1 week alone. And we have proof. Marge's eyes narrowed, but she didn't flinch. Proof? You've been snooping in my office? That's grounds for termination. Raoul stepped forward, holding up his phone. This is from your own camera, Marge. You, taking cash from the jar. Yesterday, it was a 20 with a star on it. Where is it now? For the first time, a flicker of unease crossed Marge's face. She leaned back, crossing her arms. You're bluffing. That footage is private property. You can't access it without my permission. Doesn't matter, Jessa snapped, her voice like a whip. We've got it. And we've got witnesses, every one of us has seen you skim. You think we're stupid? Marge's gaze darted between them, calculating. Then she laughed, a cold, brittle sound that sent a chill down Liana's spine. You think you can threaten me? I own this place. I make the rules. You're replaceable, every last one of you. Not if we walk out, Kai said, his voice shaky but firm. No staff, no cafe. Good luck serving your fancy tourists alone. Priya nodded, her arms crossed. We've been talking to the regulars too. Mr. Callahan? He asked why we're always so stressed. Maybe he'd like to know where his tips are going. The threat hung in the air, heavy and real. Marge's smirk faltered, her fingers tightening on the edge of her desk. You wouldn't dare. You need this job more than I need you. Do we? Liana said, stepping closer. I've been breaking my back for you, missing my daughter's bedtime, counting pennies for her birthday. And you've been stealing from us, stealing from Sophia's telescope, from Raoul's kid, from all of us. We're done. Marge stood, her height imposing even in heels. You're playing a dangerous game, Torres. I could sue you for defamation, fire you for theft, yes, theft. That 20 you planted? I could say you stole it first. Liana's breath caught, but Jessa jumped in. Try it. We've got the video time-stamped. You took it after she left it on the table. It's your move, not ours. The room pulsed with silence, the standoff stretching taut. Then Marge's shoulders slumped, just a fraction, but enough to signal a crack. What do you want? She muttered. Fair tips, Liana said. Every dollar goes to the staff, split even. No more probation excuses. And we want it in writing. Marge scoffed. You think I'll just hand over my profits? They're not your profits, Raoul growled. They're ours. You've got the cafe, the property, the fancy car. Let us have what we earn. Marge stared at them, her jaw working as if chewing on her next move. Finally, she sat back down, pulling a notepad from her drawer. Fine. I'll draft something. But if this leaks, if you breathe a word to the customers or the press, you're all gone. Understood? Liana exchanged glances with the others. It wasn't a full victory, not yet, but it was a start. Understood, she said. As Marge scribbled, her pen scratching like a confession, Liana felt a tremor of triumph. They'd faced the dragon and drawn blood. But as they left the office, Jessa grabbed her arm. She's not done, she whispered. She'll find a way to screw us. We need to be ready. That night, Liana sat on her balcony with Sophia, a blanket draped over their shoulders. The sky glittered with stars, and Sophia pointed out Cassiopeia, her voice bubbling with excitement. See, Mama? It's like a W. Yeah, baby, Liana said, pulling her close. A win. But Jessa's warning echoed in her mind. Marge wouldn't let this go quietly. The agreement was a bandage, not a cure. The next day, the cafe buzzed with a strange energy. Marge handed out a typed memo. Tips would be split evenly, effective immediately, but her smile was too tight, her eyes too sharp. By noon, Liana noticed a new face, a man in a suit, lingering by the counter, chatting with Marge. He carried a briefcase and a clipboard, his demeanor all business. "Who's that?" Liana asked Raoul during a break. "Dunno," he said, frowning. "Looks like trouble." Trouble arrived at 3 p.m. Marge called them into the office again, the suit standing beside her. "This is Mr. Hargrove," she said, her tone smug. "My new accountant. He's reviewed the books and found discrepancies. Seems some of you have been underreporting your hours. I could dock your pay, or worse." Liana's blood ran cold. "That's a lie. We clock in and out every shift." Hargrove adjusted his glasses. "The records say otherwise. Ms. Wentworth's within her rights to adjust wages retroactively." Jessa laughed, a harsh bark. "You're retaliating. We call you out, and you cook the books." "Prove it," Marge said, her smirk back in full force. Liana's mind raced. The footage, the ledger, they had evidence, but Marge had power, resources, a system rigged in her favor. As they left the office, defeat nipped at their heels, but Liana's resolve hardened. "We're not done," she told the group. "She wants a war. We'll give her one." That night, she called an old friend, Elena, a paralegal who'd once helped her through her divorce. "I need advice," Liana said, explaining everything. Elena's voice crackled with determination. "Get me the footage, the ledger, anything. We'll bury her." The stars shone brighter as Liana hung up. The fight wasn't over, it was just beginning. The Golden Spoon Café hummed with its usual evening rhythm, but beneath the clatter of plates and the murmur of wealthy diners, a quiet revolution brewed. Liana Torres stood at the edge of the dining room, her apron stained with coffee and resolve, watching Marge Wentworth glide between tables like a queen inspecting her court. It had been 3 days since Marge's counterattack, 3 days since the accountant, Mr. Hargrove, had threatened to dock their pay with falsified records. 3 days since Liana had called Elena, her paralegal friend, and set the wheels in motion. Tonight, it all came to a head. The plan was simple but bold: expose Marge publicly, with evidence too damning to deny. Elena had spent sleepless nights reviewing the security footage, the ledger photo, and statements from Raoul, Jessa, Kai, and Priya. She'd found a labor law violation. Marge's probationary tip policy wasn't just unethical, it was illegal under California wage statutes. Combined with the theft, it was enough to sink her. But Liana knew Marge wouldn't go down without a fight. They needed leverage, something to force her hand. That leverage arrived at 6 p.m., disguised as a familiar face. Mr. Callahan, the tech mogul who'd tipped Liana the $50 bill Marge stole, shuffled in, his gray hair tousled from the ocean breeze. Liana had taken a risk that morning, slipping him a note with his coffee: "Your tips aren't reaching us. Meet me at 6 if you want the truth." He'd come, his curiosity piqued, and now he sat at his usual booth, sipping a latte and waiting. Liana approached, her heart thudding. "Mr. Callahan, thank you for coming. I need your help." He peered over his glasses, his voice gruff but kind. "You're the one with the magic smile, Liana. What's this about my tips?" She slid into the booth, keeping her voice low. "Marge, Ms. Wentworth, has been taking them. Not just yours, everyone's. We have proof, but she's fighting dirty. If you back us, she can't ignore it." Callahan's bushy brows lifted. "Stealing from you kids? That's low, even for her. What's your proof?" Liana showed him the ledger photo on her phone, then played a snippet of the footage Raoul's cousin had pulled, Marge's hand dipping into the jar, clear as day. Callahan's face darkened. I've been tipping you folks for years. She's got some nerve. Will you help? Liana asked. If you call her out, here, tonight, she'll have to face us. He nodded, a slow grin spreading. I don't like being played. Let's give her a show. The signal went out, Jessa dimmed the lights, Raoul cranked the kitchen radio to a low hum, and Kai and Priya ushered the last customers out, claiming a private event. Marge emerged from her office, her blazer pristine, her expression sour. What's going on? Why's it so quiet? Callahan stood, his voice booming across the cafe. Marjorie Wentworth, I've got a bone to pick with you. Marge froze, her eyes narrowing. Mr. Callahan, this isn't the time. Oh, it's the perfect time, he said, stepping forward. I've been leaving tips for your staff, good kids like Liana here, and you've been pocketing them. I saw the proof. Care to explain? The room stilled. Marge's face flushed, but she recovered fast. That's absurd. They're lying, trying to extort me. Then explain this, Liana said, holding up her phone. She projected the footage onto the wall, a trick Elena had taught her, showing Marge's theft in stark relief. Gasps rippled through the few remaining staff, and Callahan's scowl deepened. Marge's voice rose, shrill. That's doctored. I'll sue you all. Save it, Callahan snapped. I've known you since you bought this place with your daddy's money. You don't scare me. Fix this, or I'll take it to every regular who walks through that door. You'll be serving ghosts. Marge's bravado cracked. She glanced at the staff, Liana, Raoul, Jessa, Kai, Priya, standing united, their eyes unyielding. Then Elena stepped in, unannounced, her presence a surprise even to Liana. She carried a manila folder and a calm authority. Ms. Wentworth, I'm Elena Vasquez, representing these employees. You've violated labor laws, wage theft, tip pooling fraud. We've filed a complaint with the state. You can settle now, or we'll see you in court. Marge's mouth opened, then closed. The weight of their evidence, Callahan's influence, the footage, the law, pressed down like a tidal wave. Finally, she slumped into a chair, her voice a hiss. What do you want? Full tip rights, Liana said, stepping forward. Retroactive pay for what you stole. And you step back, let us run the floor. No more games. Marge glared, but Callahan's stare and Elena's folder left her cornered. Fine, she spat. Draft it. But you'll regret this. No, Liana said softly. You will. The agreement was signed that night, tips restored, back pay promised, and Marge relegated to a figurehead role. She stormed out, her heels echoing her defeat, leaving the cafe in stunned silence. Then Jessa hooped, Raoul clapped Liana's shoulder, and Kai and Priya hugged. Callahan tipped his hat. You've got guts, Liana. Keep that smile. Elena pulled Liana aside, grinning. You did it. I'll handle the legal follow-through. She's done. As the crew cleaned up, Liana slipped outside, the ocean breeze cool against her skin. She called Mrs. Delgado. Sophia was still awake, waiting. I'm coming home, baby, Liana said. We won. The next week, the golden spoon felt different. Tips flowed freely, split 5 ways, and the staff laughed more, their shoulders lighter. Liana's first full share, $300, went straight to a telescope, delivered on Sophia's birthday. That night, they stood on the balcony, Sophia's eyes wide as she traced Orion through the lens. Mama, it's like magic. It's like us, Liana said, hugging her. We made it through the dark. Months later, the cafe thrived under their care. Marge sold her stake to Callahan, who turned it into a co-op, staff-owned, profit-shared. Liana became manager, her name on the door, her smile genuine. She framed the ledger photo, a reminder of their fight, and hung it in the break room. Raoul opened a food truck with his earnings, Jessa started a tattoo parlor, and Kai and Priya saved for college. The Golden Spoon wasn't just a diner anymore, it was a beacon. One evening, as Liana locked up, a tourist asked, "What's the story behind this place?" "It's got soul." She smiled, the stars reflecting in her eyes. "It's about rising from nothing. About people who wouldn't give up." Sophia tugged her hand, the telescope slung over her shoulder. "Come on, Mama. Let's find a new constellation." They walked home together, the night alive with possibility. Liana had faced the dragon, rallied her knights, and claimed the kingdom, not for gold, but for hope. The dust had settled, and from it, they'd built something brighter than the stars.